By now, you know that self trust isn't something that you earn, it's something that you remember. But if it were that simple, wouldn't we all just trust ourselves already? So, why does it still feel so hard? Here's the truth, my friend. Most approaches to self trust, to relearning how to trust ourselves, they don't work because they focus on doing more. But self trust, it's not about adding. Instead, it's about unlearning. It's about peeling back the layers. And once we understand this shift, everything changes. So, today we're going to break down exactly why this approach works, why so many of us stay stuck, and how you can start integrating this into your life right now. Welcome back to the Magic Mindfulness Podcast. I'm Rachel, and if you are new here, this is part 4 of our 5-part series on self trust and transformation. So, if you missed the first 3 episodes, go ahead and watch or listen to them, whichever platform you're on. I'm going to link to them in the description here. Everyone built on the last, so you don't want to miss the previous episodes. And of course, this series is sponsored by Wildly Aligned Women, my 12-week program where we don't just talk about self trust, we live it, we embody it. And so, if you want to take this work deeper, doors are actually open. Today is the very last day. So, more on that later, but let's get into it. Why does this actually work? Well, there are 3 reasons that I want to cover with you today why this approach works. And one of those is the power of small, aligned actions. Many of us think that rebuilding our self trust, reconnecting with the trust within, it's a big breakthrough, just one event. But in reality, that self trust is built through small, consistent, aligned actions. I have seen this time and time again, and I've experienced it myself. One woman told me that before we worked together, she used to kind of freeze when making the smallest decisions. She would overthink everything. She was worried that she would get it all wrong. And I've been there before too. I totally get it. I can relate. She said as she started practicing, tuning into herself daily, just asking simple questions like, what do I need right now? She realized that self trust wasn't something that she had to figure out. It was something she could practice. It was something that was within her all along that she needed to learn to listen to. In yoga, we call this abhyasa, which means committed practice. And it's the idea that change or transformation happens when you keep showing up, not perfectly, but consistently. And so, this is why self trust is built in the little choices. What do I want to eat? What do I want to do with this 1 hour? What would feel good right now? And, I know that it's easy to think that self trust means having everything figured out. But what I've learned is that it's just learning to trust myself in the moment over and over again. And that's it. That's the shift. All right. The second reason that I want to share with you today is the role of self compassion. I've talked before about how self compassion, ahimsa, is the foundation of our yoga practice, both on and off the mat. We tend to think that if we could just be more disciplined, we'd finally trust ourselves. We'd learn to listen to ourselves and we would learn to trust our heart. We would learn to trust our gut. But let me ask you something. Has being hard on yourself ever made you feel more confident? Self trust, we can't build it through force, my friend. It's built through ahimsa. It's been through self compassion, mindful self compassion, intentional non harming. You don't have to fix yourself, my friend. What I would like for you to do is learn how to stop beating yourself up for not being further along than where you are. How many of us needed to hear that today? Drop a thumbs up in the comments. Now, when you shift from self judgment to self compassion, again, everything starts to shift. That's where the transformation begins. I used to think that I just needed more willpower, more discipline, more motivation. But what I really needed was permission to be kinder to myself. I had a student of mine, she shared something similar with me. She used to think that she had to push through by trying harder. But she said what actually helped her move forward was learning to be more gentle with herself, right? It's counterintuitive. She allowed space for uncertainty instead of making it mean that she was failing. And that shift, that is what helped her finally tap into that sense of inner trust, where she learned to listen to herself, where she learned to trust her intuition step by step, day by day, with compassion and kindness. This is the missing piece that nobody talks about, my friends. Self trust grows when you stop punishing yourself for not being there yet, when you stop being so hard on yourself. You meet yourself where you're at from a place of non judgment, from a place of curiosity, and from a place of mindful self compassion. And then the third reason Why overthinking keeps us stuck? Most of us tend to think that we will be able to trust ourselves more once we feel 100% sure about something. We've touched on this a little bit, but here's the thing. That certainty, it's not a requirement for self-trust. Like we talked about in the previous episode, I can drive from Virginia to California trusting that I have a map that's going to get me there. It's not that I know every single step along the way, but I know by following the process, I can get from here to there. It's about moving forward even when you don't have all of the answers. And again, in yoga, it's all about yoga, living yoga off the mat. There's this principle called Ishvara Pranidhana, surrendering to the flow, surrendering to a higher power, surrendering to something greater than ourselves. And it teaches us that certainty is not always possible and that that's okay, because clarity doesn't come from thinking about something for weeks and weeks and weeks. We've got to take that inspired action, my friend. We've got to take that aligned action. Clarity, trust come from doing, not overdoing, right? There's that balance between the masculine and the feminine, the being and the doing. But we've got to take that aligned and inspired action. We've got to do. So many of the women that I've worked with have told me something similar. I keep trying to figure it out, but the more I think about it, the more stuck I feel. And let me tell you, my friend, I have been there before myself. Analysis paralysis, anybody. Let me know in the comments how you have experienced this in in the past. Where have you gotten hung up on taking action because you just thought you had to keep figuring it out? And the more you try to think about it, the more stuck you felt. Tell me about it. I'd love to share stories. I know I'm not the only one. One of my students told me that she had spent actually years waiting to feel 100% sure before she made a decision. And the longer she waited, the more disconnected she felt, the less she felt like herself, the less she felt like she could trust herself. And so through this work, she learned first with the small choices to trust herself. And she began to stop second guessing every little thing and started asking herself, what feels right now? And the more she practiced it, again, small, consistent action, the more natural that self trust became. It's like a muscle, right? When we work it, it gets stronger. So instead of waiting until you feel ready, what if you could trust yourself to take just one small step today? And so, why does this matter? Well, here's the thing. If we don't shift out of these patterns, we tend to stay stuck in the same cycle, right? So it's overthinking, it's doubting ourselves, it's never trusting ourselves, never fully stepping into the life we truly desire. But the moment you start unlearning these patterns and applying what I'm teaching you, you start moving forward with more ease, with more flow, with more effortlessness. It becomes natural. You begin to trust yourself. You know how to listen to your intuition. So we've covered a lot pretty quickly today. So let's recap. That inner trust that we build, that self trust, it's not built by doing more. It's built by unlearning what's keeping you stuck, peeling back those layers one by one, and reconnecting with yourself, with your core, with the heart of who you are through small, consistent, aligned actions instead of waiting for one singular breakthrough. It's small, consistent actions day by day over time. Self compassion instead of beating ourselves up, instead of being so hard on ourselves, meeting ourselves where we're at, trusting yourself in uncertainty instead of overthinking every choice. You've got the path in front of you. You've got the map in front of you. Just take the next aligned step. Just take the next aligned step. As you follow the path appears, right? And when you shift into this way of being, everything changes. All right, we're going to be heading into our final episode of this series, so stay tuned. And in our very last episode, I'm going to break down exactly how to integrate this into your real life and why now is the time to start. And so, my friend, if this series has been speaking to you, imagine how much deeper this work goes inside wildly aligned women. We are not just talking about self trust, we are embodying it together with real time support, accountability, and a high level container where you can finally integrate these practices into your daily life. Doors close at midnight tonight, and this is your chance to be a part of it. Click below to join us. I'm going to include the link in the show notes, and I would love to welcome you inside. Again, click the link below before the doors close and be sure to check out the previous episodes and tune into the next one. All right, my friend, I'll see you next time. Make it a beautiful day and trust yourself.